Hi there, I'm Steve Fisher, and today I'm going to talk about chord inversions. So in the opening I was just playing a A minor blues, and I was using some chord inversions, which you can see gives a little variety to the chords. It allows me to put some melody lines in there, to move the notes around on the neck, and gives you a little more interesting thing to play other than just playing the standard block chords, your bar chords, or whatever. So today I'm going to talk about one approach to using chord inversions which I really like. Let me start by just explaining real quick what a chord inversion is, in case you don't know. Chord inversion, if you know how a chord is built, you take the root, for example D major, root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth. So if you play it with a D on the bottom, that's root position. If you play it with the third on the bottom, that's a chord inversion. So that's the first chord inversion, starting on the third. You can start it on the fifth. You could even start it on the seventh if it was a seventh chord. So you have at least 4 different inversions you can use for seventh chords. And what you can do is take some familiar, or what might be familiar, chord shapes that you're used to playing, and take a few notes out of them, and then take the inversions and move them around the neck, and you come up with some really cool chord voicings. So for example, if you take a D major 7, I'm playing it here in the fifth position. So of course you can play it like that. Here's maybe a more familiar shape. So D major 7. But I can play it in root position. You can play it with a third on the bottom. So that's first inversion. You can play it with the fifth on the bottom, so second inversion. Or I can play it with the seventh on the bottom, so you have third inversion. So that's a real quick introduction to chord inversions. Okay, so to demonstrate this concept, what I did is I came up with a little etude. And this is a great thing I like to do sometimes, just to give me something tangible to work on when I'm thinking about concepts. So I was thinking about these chord inversions and how to use them all over the neck, and just wanted to get them under my fingers, get them in my brain so I really know them well. And what I decided to do is I had a little melody, and I had an idea. What if I take this G minor melody and try to change the chord inversion and play the melody on the top note, but change the chord inversion on every note of the melody. So it goes between G minor, or G minor 7, and D7, the 5 of G. So here's the melody, and then I'll play the etude for you. Okay, so that's a nice, simple little melody. What if you wanted to do an arrangement for solo guitar for that? Or what if that was a melody that you were going to play in a solo with a singer-songwriter? You have a guitar solo, and you don't want to just play that real simple melody. I mean, it sounds like maybe a nursery rhyme or a real simple piece of classical music or something like that. So here's what I came up with. This is my 7th chord arpeggio etude number 1 is what we'll call it. And remember, I'm playing the melody, and I'm switching between different inversions of G minor 7 and D dominant 7. Okay, so hopefully you heard the melody there, and maybe you could also hear that I was switching between G minor 7 and D7. And by the way, I'll have the tablature and standard notation available for download for that etude. Just check the description in the video. Okay, so I just played through that etude. Now let me explain my concept for using these chord inversions. If you take a basic chord shape, so for example, G minor 7 bar chord here at the 3rd fret. So G minor 7, what's it made up of? You have G, B flat, D, and F. And here in this position, we have a pretty simple chord to play. But if we want to use this chord inversion concept, what I like to do is take the first note in this chord shape, which is a G, first note on the bottom, then skip a string. So we're not going to play this D on the A string, but the next two notes will play. So we have the G, skip a string, and then we have an F, and then we have B flat. So E, F, B flat. So what do we have there? We have the root G, we have the 7th F, and we have the 3rd B flat. Okay? So there is your first inversion. Oh, that's the root position. That's the first inversion that I'm talking about today. So what else can we do with that? Well, we know there's 4 notes in any 7th chord. So why don't we just move on up? We have the G root position. Why don't we move to first inversion with the B flat on the bottom? So if we have a B flat, what we're going to do is kind of like voice leading. Just take each of the notes, move them up to the next chord tone. So we have a G, moves up to B flat. We had an F, that moves up to G. We had a B flat, that's a 3rd, moves up to the 5th, D. So that gives us B flat, G, and D. So that's our first inversion of G minor 7. Now remember, the pattern here is to use one note on the lowest string that you're using, skip a string, and then use the next 2 strings. That works really well if you're using your fingers to play, kind of like a claw style. You could also do it if you're hybrid picking. Use the pick on the lower string and use your fingers on the upper 2 strings. So that's root, first inversion. So what if we move up a little more, put the 5th on the bottom, so that's a D. So the B flat moves to D, and then the G, what does that move up to? That moves up to B flat, and then the D moves up to F. So here we have D, B flat, and F. Okay, so that's a second inversion of G minor 7 using this little chord shape. And then let's move it up one more. Why not? Move it up and put the 7th on top. So that gives us an F, and then a D, and a G. So we've just moved the last 3 notes up to their next chord tones. And when I first learned about this and first started looking at these chord inversions, I kind of didn't care for the inversion that has the 7th on the bottom. So here the F. But if you go back and look at that blues progression that I played at the start of this video, I actually use that inversion a lot, and I like it because it has the root note on top. So for G minor 7, you play F on the bottom. It's got a G on top. So just a little thing to be aware of. It's good to know, what notes, or at least what chord tones you're playing in each of these inversions on each string, especially on the top string, because that's going to give you a melody. So just to review G minor 7 real quick, we have root position. So that's the root, the 7, and the 3rd. Then we have the first inversion, B flat on the bottom. So we have the 3rd, the root, and the 5th. And we have second inversion, we have D, B flat, and F. And then we have third inversion, we have F, D, and G. Okay, so now we just looked at a G minor 7. We looked at all the different inversions, 4 different inversions, using the pattern of one string, skip a string, play the next 2 strings. Okay, so that's great. That's one string set. You know, it might take you some time to learn that. That's natural, of course, and what you can do is just, you know, stick on that string set for a while, play 1 or 2 inversions, try to use the inversions in some songs that you know. Maybe play along with some real book songs and force yourself to use those inversions. Don't play the standard chords. Say, you know, maybe every time a minor 7 chord comes up, I'm going to play the first inversion of it. And then go back and do the song again and say, well, now I'm going to play the root position and the third inversion. And then eventually you get to a point where you can play all the inversions anywhere on the neck for all chords. You know, that's ultimately what you want to be able to do. But start slowly. You know, just work on one inversion, one string set, and get yourself comfortable. And then move on from there. And so, but the next thing that I'll talk about is changing string sets. So we just did the 6th string, the 4th string, and the 3rd string for G minor 7. Now, using that pattern, we can actually use 3 different string sets. We can do 6, 4, 3. We can do 5, 3, 2, and we can do 4, 2, 1. So there's 3 different string sets, and it's you know, the next logical step in this process is to learn these inversions for all the different string sets. So for G minor 7, still sticking with that one, let's talk about the next string set and how to figure that out. So if you look at the first string set, we had G, F, B flat. Let's move to the next string set, so 5, 3, 2. So what we want to do is find where can we play a G, F, B flat on the next string set. Well, if you know your neck, if you know the notes all over the guitar, which you should be working on that if you don't know that already, we move up here to the 10th position. So on the 5th string, we have a G. And we can play G, F, B flat. Same notes, it's just moved up an octave. So from there, we do the exact same thing. We think about moving all the chord tones up to the next, you know, to the next inversion. So for this string set, we have G, F, B flat, and then we move up to the first inversion, B flat, G, D, and then we move up to have the 5th as the lowest note. I'm going to move, instead of playing way up here, I'm going to move down here to the 3rd position, and we have the 5th, which is a D, B flat, and F. And then we move up to the 7th, so that's going to be an F. That's right here. And we have F, D, and G. F, D, and G. So here's what we have for this string set. Root position, first inversion. And don't forget, anytime you're playing a note that is right around the 12th position, if you're playing some notes on the 12th fret, like this G, if you don't have to play any notes that are below the 12th fret, you can always just move that down and use an open string. So move it all the way down an octave. I'm playing B flat, G, D. Well, you can also play the same thing down here. So then the 2nd inversion, D on the bottom, you have D, B flat, F. And then the 3rd inversion, you have the F on the bottom. You're playing F, D, G. Okay, so then that's another string set to learn. The shapes are a little bit different because everything's moved up one fret on the B string because of the way the guitar's tuned. But once you get comfortable with the 6, 4, 3 string set, move to the next string set. Now it's pretty easy to understand that we're going to talk about the next string set. This is the last string set, and it's 4, 2, 1. So again, just starting at our root position, we have G, F, and B flat. We'll just move that up an octave to the 4, 2, 1 string set, and you have G, F, and B flat here in the 5th position. And then again, if we move all the notes up by a chord tone, then we put the B flat on the bottom. We have B flat, G, D. And then we put the 5th on the bottom, so we have G and G, B flat, and F. And then we can move it up one more and have the 7th on the bottom. And we have F, D, G. And that might be a little bit familiar to you because it's part of this bar chord. We're just playing 3 of the top 4 notes out of that bar chord. So you didn't know it already, but if you ever played a G minor 7 just by playing the top 4 strings, well, you're playing 3rd inversion, you're playing the F on the bottom. So for this exercise, for this lesson, we're just playing the F, the D, and the G. Okay, so that's all the string sets. Next, what I'll talk about is where to go from here. Okay, so we just talked about all the different inversions and all the different string sets for a minor 7 chord. G minor 7 was the example we went through. So the next step, after you get comfortable with minor 7, is to move on to the different types of 7th chords. So there's major 7, there's dominant 7, there's minor 7 flat 5, or half diminished. And so you should move on to those. Take it one type of chord at a time, go slow, just like I said, focus on one inversion for a while, or just focus on one string set and just one type of chord. Just move slowly, and over a period of several weeks or days or months, however, everyone learns at a different pace, eventually you'll learn them. And my whole point of doing this lesson is I think it's a really valuable technique, a really valuable tool to have in your arsenal. So when you're vamping or you're writing songs, you're trying to come up with a different arrangement for a chord progression, it's a real nice thing to have in your bag. So let me talk about major 7 real quick. I'm not going to go through all the different chord types. If you know how the different chord types are formed, you can just take the concept that I've already explained and apply them to the different chord types. So major 7 real quick. G major 7. Here at the 3rd position, you have this pretty standard chord shape for major 7. You're playing root 7, 3, 5. And by the way, root 7, 3, 5 is also the minor 7 chord, the bar chord that I started off things with. So root 5, we're skipping the 5, 7, 3, 5. So G major 7, root 7, 3, 5. So we'll just play root 7, 3 on strings 6, 4, and 3. Then you move it up to the next inversion. Then you move it up to the next inversion. Oops. Gotta play an F sharp there. And then the last inversion. So what you have is course, just take those same notes, if you know the names of the notes, move them to the next string set. You'll have slightly different fingerings, but you'll have the same notes. And as I did with G minor 7, just do the same thing with all the different types of 7th chords. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. Chord inversions are really cool. They have a lot of good uses, and I hope that you're able to learn this. I hope that you're able to apply this and use this to improve your playing in the future. So again, my name's Steve Fisher. Thanks a lot, and check me out on steve-fisher.net. Check out my YouTube channel, which you're currently watching, and subscribe, like it, do all that stuff. I'll put tab and standard notation for the Etude that I played earlier online. I'll put the download link in the description for this video. So what I'm going to do to go out is I'm just going to play part of a song. It's one of my original songs, and it uses some of these chord inversion concepts. So check it out. Thanks.